going on, everyone? So, the Chicago Bulls are trying to find a trade for Nikola Vucevic, and reports are, if they're unable to, that they're going to buy him out, and basically, he'd be free to go anywhere. There were reports that, like, hey, he's probably going to get bought out at some point during the season, but it's looking more like he'll be bought out during the offseason because he'll have more options as far as teams that he can sign with, where if he goes in the season, anybody that's an April team he wouldn't be able to sign with because he makes too much money on his contract. Basically, anybody making more than the mid-level exception, these apron teams wouldn't be able to bring in. And Nikola Vucevic is making a little over $21 million, let's just round it up to $22 million, right? Makes things a little challenging where if he's bought out in the offseason, well, then now he can go sign with the Lakers or any of these other teams and make it work. Now, look, if the Lakers can go and get Nikola Vucevic off of a buyout, that would be beautiful. I'd love to bring in Nikola Vucevic. I think him in a backup role, you could argue there isn't anybody better, right? However, an idea that I kind of have, right, to kind of, maybe appease Chicago, help the Lakers in multiple fronts, and maybe even incentivize Chicago to pony up some of the other players that they want to move off of, an Ayo Dosunmu, can you maybe get a Patrick Williams, Kobe White, they're supposedly shopping, right? They have several guys on that roster, even a Smith, right? Like they have guys, Jalen Smith, they have guys on their roster that they're trying to move and get off of, right? So my kind of thought process, again, it's just a thought, right? Is what if you went to Chicago and offered a trade for Nikola Vucevic if they're willing to include guys like Ayo Dosunmu and some of these other guys and kind of do like a big swing trade, right? To where now you're bringing on multiple guys, right? And now the Lakers can solve several needs and kind of do a bigger swing trade, maybe even clear off some salary in a roster spot in the process. And then, bring in another guy, like if Chris Middleton or something like that ends up getting bought out or something, now you can do that. But maybe you can bring in, two other kind of key guys, especially because guys like Ayo and stuff are just lower salary guys right now that you could kind of pull off that trade rather easily and kind of take on Nikola Vucevic. Now, a couple things, right? First off, I know there's just going to be people like, why would you trade for Nikola Vucevic if you can just get him for free off a buyout? And it's because, again, like if Chicago, right, they could either just have dead money on their books, or they could get players that actually, can give them production and give them flexibility to maybe go make a trade, right? So it would make sense for Chicago. From the Lakers standpoint, again, you're kind of using Nikola Vucevic as a negative asset. Hey, we're helping you so that way you don't just have this dead money on your books and you can get some players that maybe you could flip and trade and do whatever, or just keep and let the money fall off your books, right? Maybe you could do something like that to where now it's not the Lakers, yes, it would be best to get him for free off of a buyout, but Lakers would need to make a trade regardless to make that happen. But now you incentivize Chicago to trade guys like Ayo and stuff at a lower rate than they might have otherwise. Because you got to remember, the Lakers are very limited on their assets. They don't have a bunch of firsts where they can just give up a first for Ayo and then give up another first for Patrick Williams and or Jalen Smith or whatever, right? So Lakers have to get creative in finding ways to kind of incentivize teams to maybe take a lower, kind of asset rate. But again, like, how do you do that if you're the Lakers? Well, you have this $21 million contract. Nikola Vucevic probably isn't going to take half of that for free. So you're going to have to buy him out for nearly the full amount. Or we can pull off a trade to where you guys get to actually get some value for Nikola Vucevic. And in return, you're helping us easier land some of these guys like Ayo and so on. Now, it just depends on what the contract structure is, right? Ideally, I'd like to keep a Rui Hachimura. The problem is Nikola Vucevic's contract is high enough to where, Maxi Kleber and Gabe Vincent alone kind of wash out with that. Now, look, you could add in a Dalton Connect, but still, you wouldn't have enough to bring in Ayo plus clear off salary and stuff. But if you could get multiple players, right? So you look at it like this. If you could do Rui Hachimura, right, on top of Gabe Vincent, right, that gets you nearly $30 million right there. I think it does get you $30 million, but let's call it roughly $30 million, right? That alone, and then you add in Maxi Kleber, there's 41 million, right? And then you can add in a Dalton Connect. That gets you, 45, almost 46 million in salary that you can now bring in. So if you wanted to, you could do something like a Vucevic, an Io, and a Patrick Williams, right? Now you got that athletic, versatile kind of two-way kind of forward that you could slot in either spot, right? If you needed to, you could bring Marcus Smart into the starting unit, which there's already talks about the Lakers doing. You'd clear off, you'd kind of do this like 4-for-3 swing, still clear some salary and do that. Or you could do something where you're getting a Jalen Smith, a Io DeSumo, and a Nikola Vucevic, to where now you're getting this kind of package where you're getting, again, another young kind of, 4-5 type guy that can come in and give you some depth. And you're getting a kind of just versatile guard that can slot in 1 through 3. And you're getting Nikola Vucevic, who still maintains cap flexibility. You could package his salary. That's still a $20 million expiring contract. So let's say Jalen Smith is just really good for you. And it's like, you know what? We don't really need Nikola Vucevic. You can now package his money, right? So you still maintain that flexibility, right? Where a lot of these other trades, right? You're taking back guys that have multiple years, right? So you're kind of stuck with them if they don't work, but they also don't have the value that the expiring contracts will have at the trade deadline. Where Nikola Vucevic, you can bring in. If it works, great, you can keep him, let the money fall off the books, and then maybe give him like a 1 or 2 year deal on the cheap. Or, again, if that player becomes available to where it's like, hey, this guy at 18 million, we could go trade for right now. Well, now you still have Nikola Vucevic. So not only does Nikola Vucevic give you a player that can help the main roster, he also gives you the flexibility for a trade. He also gives you the flexibility to make other moves, right? Or maybe you're doing a Kobe White, Io DeSumo, and a Nikola Vucevic, right? Like the point is that you have options to where it's like, hey, can we do a like 4-for-3 swing, right? And you still, get the open roster spot, right? So, and be able to bring in a Chris Middleton or a CJ McCollum or any of these guys. I mean, Chris Middleton, if he could stay healthy, he could slot into your 3 spot, right? So you could have him be your 3 and then have all this depth and all this versatility and this youth and this athleticism, right? You got probably the best backup center in basketball at that point in Nikola Vucevic, who can give you that floor spacing. He's more of a LeBron center than a Luka center, but still, he's a guy that could do wonders for this team. Excellent rebounder, all of that. And again, once again, you're incentivizing Chicago of like, hey, you can buy him out and it's just dead money, right? Or you could get guys like Rui makes sense for you, right? Like Gabe Vincent could make some sense for you, especially if you're sending out multiple guards, right? So now you can bring in a Gabe Vincent and he can kind of slot in and help kind of be a veteran piece for you, or you can look to flip him and trade him elsewhere, right? A Maxi Kleba, if you're getting off Nikola Vucevic, Max Kleba could help to give you that floor spacing big, or again, you could look to trade him and get off of him, and you get a young guy in Dalton Connect, right? So now it's this big package swing, and then it's like, we want Nikola Vucevic, obviously, and then, again, you could either go like a Patrick Williams, a Jalen Smith, an Io DeSumo, right? Like, I would definitely try to get Io DeSumo, right? But now, again, you'd have potentially your first-round pick, right, still, because I wouldn't trade my first, because, again, you're helping Chicago tremendously, right? If you had to throw in your second or like a pick swap, then fine, but like, I'm keeping my first. Because again, I'm helping you guys not just have to have dead money on your books. You're getting players of value that make sense for you, that also probably are easier to trade than a Nikola Vucevic, right? So again, it'd kind of be this win-win scenario. But you got to think, when the dust settles, right? Let's say it's, an Io, Patrick Williams, and then like a Nikola Vucevic, right? Say it's that. Okay, perfect. So you got that. Right? Now you got a versatile young forward, you got a versatile young guard, and then you got a, center, backup center, one of the better backup centers in the league at that point, right? But now, right, you still have that first round pick. You have Nikola Vucevic's $20 million expiring contract. You still have Austin Reeves if you needed to move off of him and trade him and get to, basically $34 million if like that higher tier guy becomes available, right? You still maintain flexibility in order to make a trade or make a move around the trade deadline. And you also give yourself the possibility of like, you might just be one of the better, deeper teams in all of basketball because you just got three guys that make more sense, are younger, more long-term pieces, more long-term fits, right? Where, again, a Patrick Williams, he can slot in at the 3 or the 4. He's probably best suited at the 4, but he is more athletic and better defensively than a Rui Hachimura, so he can slot in at the 3. Ayo Dosunmu can play 1 through 3 and defend 1 through 3. Because he has that 6'8", 6'9" wingspan, right? And then, again, you bring in Nikola Vucevic, who gives you that stability in the backup center option. Like I said, it's just kind of a thought, because Chicago wants to move off of like half their roster. They still need to figure out the Josh Giddey situation, and they don't want to just have to buy out Nikola Vucevic because they don't want the dead money on their books. So it's like, okay, well, how can you be creative with the limited assets you have in order to go and make that move? Also, there's a lot of questions about the Lakers like wanting to trade that first, because they kind of want to stack the assets again in case, in next season, Giannis ends up becoming available and he wants to go to the Lakers. Now you have more first, you have assets, right? Like now you can maybe make that happen. Same thing with like a Nikola Vucevic or Nikola Jokic, right? But this way you could kind of keep your first, solve a lot of your roster needs, as well as help Chicago not have dead money. I think it'd be kind of this win-win. Again, you got to get creative. If you're Robert Williams, you got to get creative here, right? Or Robert Williams. If you're Rob Pelinka, all these names, all these players, Rob Pelinka, you got to get creative here. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me out. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.